Now we're going to go on and talk to our next guest here about the economy, and we'll come back to this breaking story in Berlin as the events warrant. We get information 5 days after raising interest rates. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, Janet Yellen, today addressing students at the University of Baltimore. This time she actually took something of a victory lap, saying that although there are still challenges out there, the labor market is the strongest it's been in a decade. President-elect Donald Trump has said he will cut taxes and boost innovation, two moves the Fed has said could have a positive effect on the economy as well. Positive enough, in fact, that Mr. Trump's promises to cut the taxes and also to spend more on infrastructure gave the Fed the green light to raise the number of rate hikes we could expect next year from 2 to 3. So with that, is Ms. Yellen forecasting a rosy economy under Mr. Trump. We're joined now by John Taylor, who should know a thing or two about this, from Stanford University. He was a member of President George H.W. Bush, Bush's Council of Economic Advisors, and many times he's been mentioned as a possible chairman of the Fed himself. It's good to see you, sir. And before I ask you about any of that kind of speculation about your future, as I know you've been asked that so many times, what do you think of the what you've heard about Mr. Trump's plans for the economy in terms of taxes and spending put together so far?
Well, it sounds very good. There's tax reform, which we've needed for a while, regulatory reform, which we've needed for a while. I'd like to think there'd be some budget reform and monetary reform. Those go together, so it looks good. There seems to be a consensus that something like this has to be done from the Congress as well. So it's quite a change, actually, and I can see that when I testify or talk to people in the markets.
Any kind of a disconnect between cutting taxes so much and also talking about spending on infrastructure at the same time?
No, in fact, it's a tax reform. Tax reform basically is to provide incentives to firms to start up, to hire, so it's lowering the marginal rates and expanding the base. And I think it's important. Plus, you know, you've got some good appointments coming in. Mick Mulvaney is going to be the budget director. He's a lot of experience with budgeting. So, no, I don't think it has to be an increase in the budget deficit. It has to be an increase in economic growth. That's the real focus at this point, to get that growth rate up, which it has not been good at all for quite a while. So that's quite a change, and I think the policies will make a real difference.
Don't you think a guy like a Mulvaney, who has a history of being pretty tight on the budgets, might say to Mr. Trump, yeah, I'm not sure about all this spending. Maybe we better be careful here. They aren't going to run up the deficit more than we would ordinarily like to.
Well, I think everybody's got a concern about that, including the president-elect. So the question is, how do you do it? And as I say, tax reform is meant to increase growth, provide incentives, and regulatory reform as well. That's huge. Right. You got an energy secretary coming in who knows about deregulation in the oil and gas area. So I think that's promising as well. But those are not things that increase the budget deficit at all.
Okay, then what's a realistic growth rate that we can expect? Some people say there's a new normal where we're not going to get above 2 or 3% growth. But what do you say?
Well, I think the people that are saying it's a new normal of 2% are just wrong. The reason it's been low is because policies haven't been very good. I've been arguing that for a while. With the change of policy, we can get the growth rate going. I think we can actually get a real recovery started, get growth above 2, up to 3, at least 4 for a while, and then move back to a normal pace. But I think this 2% is way too low, hasn't created jobs. That's one of the reasons people are upset.
Now, on interest rates, I said in my introduction to you that we are now expecting, according to the Federal Reserve, 3 rate hikes rather than 2 next year. So, A, is that something that you go along with? Do you say that's possible? And B, how does your famous Taylor rule fit into all this? Neil Cascario, I'm sure you know, is at the Minneapolis Fed right now, wrote a fairly critical op-ed over the weekend of the Taylor rule, essentially saying that we don't need computers running our Federal Reserve, that we shouldn't be following something like that so closely. What do you say to that?
Well, it's good to see he's weighing in, but he's completely wrong. No one's talking about computers or mechanical operations. I don't know where that's coming from. There are some good reforms out there that are being proposed, which the Fed would describe its strategy so people know what it's doing. So that's completely off track, and I think if he looks carefully at what's being proposed, he'll understand that. But weigh in, sure.
I'll give you one more quick one, Professor Taylor, before you go. What about a John Taylor as Federal Reserve Chairman? Something you think about?
There's always so much speculation about these things over the years, and I've been involved in monetary policy all my life. I just want to get a good monetary policy like we had in the 80s and 90s for the most part. It led to strong growth and stability, and we can get back to that. I think it's a key part of reforms, along with tax reform and along with regulatory reform. So that's what I'm working for.
Yeah, you have become experienced in not answering that question, which is a good thing. It speaks to how highly people value, I think. Thank you, sir. It's good to talk to you again.